Council members, it's been a while since we've had a discussion about beach restoration, and I wanted to kind of jog your memories a little bit about what we've been doing with the bed tax dollars and beaches. I'm going to give you a very, very brief history of the Western Destin Beach Restoration Project, play about a 2-minute video for you, and then I'm going to ask Matt Trammell with Taylor Engineering to come up and basically give you the engineer side of how well the project is performing. Basically, that's the return on your investment.
Page 81 in your packet if you like.
And if I can figure out how to play this thing. Anybody? Anywhere? Oh, Aida.
Here she is. That was the cavalry that came in.
Nothing's happening. Oh, there you go. The Western Destin project is obviously in Western Destin. It extends from the jetty over about 1.2 miles. There is a large gap in the middle of the project that we were forced to put in the design based on litigation. It wasn't our obvious choice, and in fact that gap has caused the project to perform less than it could have. But even having said that, it still has performed very well, especially given the fact that that gap is there. 634,000 cubic yards of beach quality sand. That's always like to put the dump truck amount in there because it gives some perspective. 40,000 dump trucks. It's a lot of dump trucks. And it's created a wider beach. And not only that, but people forget that it also creates a higher beach. So it actually raised the elevation of the beach something like 5.5 feet. So those two things not only provide recreational benefits, but it also provides storm damage reduction benefits. You think of a speed bump, that wave energy that's coming in, if it hits that, if it hits that speed bump, the damage is not going to be as great on the upland properties as it would be if that speed bump were not there.
Could you just remind us that section that we couldn't do because of litigation, what is that litigation about?
I'm not going to speak from a legal perspective, but this is just my opinion. The people in that area did not want a public beach in front of their private beach, because most of the properties in Destin, their deeds show down to the water line, the mean high water line, as their ownership. When the state comes in or we come in, whoever, you're putting that sand in sovereign submerged land, that public land, so it naturally becomes public beach. So there is a line somewhere on that new beach that delineates the difference between the landward public beach and the upland private beach. And I think at the heart of it, that was the issue.
Thank you.
Sure. Approximately $8 million, funded in part by an MSBU, but mainly funded by the bed tax. We still have an outstanding $5 million loan that won't be paid off until, I think, 2020. So we're still paying off on that, but in the end, I think you'll see that it's definitely money well spent. And I'll tell you an anecdotal story that it impresses me. I don't know if it'll impress y'all, but Jetty East, which is one of the condominiums you probably are all familiar with, it's relatively near the jetty. They had no beach for many years, or if they had a beach, it was literally maybe about that wide. I mean, I've seen it where the water was literally 4 feet deep at their property, so there was no beach. They didn't sell a property in there for many, many years because of that. No, who wants a beachfront condo without a beach? Almost immediately after the beach project was completed, 8 to 10 property owners came to the property manager asking about selling their unit because now they could. Those kind of stories to me really show you the impact of these types of projects on individuals' lives, but also communities. That, you know, the economy that is bolstered by these types of projects is considerable. So now I'm just going to play you a short video, if I can get it to play, which I think I can. Oop. This was done by us, or for us, by a local individual named Alex Lau, who's a photographer and videographer. Alex did a really good job with that. I'm very pleased with that. And just a couple of before and after pictures. That's Jetty East there on the left, lower left. Actually, it's an area when they had quite a bit of sand, same area. Those houses at one point were unlivable because a lot of their infrastructure underneath had been destroyed by multiple storms. That's afterwards. And all those walkovers were built by the private owners because they were so happy to have a dune there that they could build a walkover. And then finally, that's a picture of after it had been vegetated with sea oats and sand fencing. And, a lot different than it was when we started. So if you're having any questions, I'll ask Matt Trammell to come up and give you a little bit more information about how that project actually is performing more than just pretty pictures. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you very much. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, council members. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Matt Trammell. I'm a senior coastal engineer with Taylor Engineering. We are the county and TDC's coastal and environmental engineering consultant. Been working on the beaches here in Okaloosa County for quite some time. So first, I'll just give you a little quick Beach Nourishment 101. You know, the whole purpose of this was to mitigate for all of that sand that we've lost over the years, going all the way back to Hurricane Ivan, even Opal in '94, Ivan, Dennis in 2004, 2005. A lot of those properties had no storm protection. They were all condemned, as Jim had mentioned, especially in the Destin Point and Jetty East area, following even just the minor storm events. But we also want to create a nice beach. We want to preserve that natural resource and then also encourage recreation out there for our tourism economy, so enhance recreation. And again, we're basically just putting a large perturbation of sand out there. It's a very dynamic area. It doesn't just stay as much as we wish it would. Here in our area, we're very storm dominated. You know, a hurricane can change things overnight. So what we do is, you know, we do a lot of analysis to identify the background erosion, what the true problems are, and then design the project around these to where we can create such a project to give us the longest life possible. And after a nourishment, if you see on the right-hand picture there, the material is going to move. We tend to put twice as much material out there as we need, and the rest of that material is pushed off into offshore bars, or it spreads to the alongshore beaches to taper into the natural environment. Mother Nature tends to like straight lines, not you know, hard corners and large perturbations that result from the beach. So here's a couple shots of the beach project. Jim had mentioned on this. This is a plan view shot from the East Pass East Jetty. It extended over about 4,000 feet. There was a 2,900-foot gap in the project, and then another 2,200 feet of beach further to the east. The project was originally designed to be one solid restoration, and projects perform much better those that are longer and uniform as to those that are piecemeal or smaller amount of sand. You can imagine a small sand castle isn't going to survive high tide, but if you build that thing large enough, it will. Again, just showing the two reaches, the gap area, and then we also monitor a mile further to the east because we want to see how the natural beach is performing in relation to our project. Are we losing sand over there? Is that beach eroding, accreting? We can use that as a control to gauge our results. And then here's the borrow site that we utilized. We've got a lot of sand out there. It's very pretty. All we used was, this is what we refer to as the hippo borrow area, and we kind of used the back strap right there, just a few hundred feet right along the northern edge. And the way the project was constructed, a hopper barge dredged the material, sailed over to the project site, hooked up to a pipeline, reliquefied it, and pumped it up on the beach, and repeated that process about 200 times. So here's the results. We have, compared to the pre-construction condition, we've added about 120 feet of beach in Reach 1 and 65 in Reach 2. This is over in the Shoreline Towers Sandpiper area. There's a much smaller template over there. Net accretion of 400,000 and 100,000 in each of the respective areas for about $500,000 total. The gap area, although we didn't place any sand, gained 100,000 cubic yards. And if you add all those numbers up, 600,000, as Jim had mentioned, was the total volume we placed. So you can see the gap took about 20% of that right off the top. In the summary, we've got about 80% of the project volume remaining after 16 months. That's great. It's performing much better than expected. We expected a little bit worse results given the large gap there. But we also do comparisons of the post-construction to 1 year, just to see how the project performed not only over the past year and a half, but also compared to the pre- and the post-construction conditions. So you can see the gap area accreted about 60,000 cubic yards within that time, but the two project areas eroded and supplemented that, and then the east control area also experienced erosion. So the area basically from Shoreline Towers over to the back porch, that beach is still eroding. The shoreline is stable, but the volume losses are showing erosion in that area. It's supplemented somewhat by the sand we lost from the Reach 2, but I just want you all to be aware of that beach is not in such a great condition. It is in need of nourishment. Not as bad as it was here prior to construction, but it's still an erosive shoreline. And here's just some cross-sections showing you exactly what we do to measure these volume changes. The blue line shows the immediate post-construction condition. Red is a pre-construction, and black is the current condition as of just a few months ago. So as I mentioned, you can see that a large portion of that material has eroded, and we know exactly where it went. I'm not sure if you can see this too well, but you see there was a nice little perturbation in the gap between the pre- and post-construction conditions, but the black line, this 1 year, it's starting to smooth itself out. So the erosion is reducing within the project areas, but it's still somewhat erosive, and it's still going to require some attention. So I can honestly say after these first year results, we've met the project goals. We have mitigated for the lost sand. We've increased the storm protection. We've added a very large dune. Increased the berm width and the berm height. It's withstood a number of smaller storm events. You know, we've been fortunate. There's been a couple tropical storms that came through this past year. Nothing too bad, but the beach did withstand those very well. The sand quality is great. We had a number of sea turtles nesting within the restored beach in areas that they would not have nested previously. And as Jim had mentioned, we do have quite a bit of anecdotal evidence that we've actually increased the economic value of this area. So moving forward, we plan on monitoring the beach every year. We'll be producing these similar reports to continue to monitor the success or see where some areas need to be addressed. And then also we'll be working with the federal government to see if we can gain some federal project assistance. And here's just a few more photos. The one on the left is Tropical Storm Ida. And most of you don't remember Tropical Storm Ida because it wasn't a big deal. But it really was to those folks in Destin Point, and it was to those folks at Jetty East. They've replaced that seawall fronting the pool there probably 3 or 4 times in the last 5 to 6 years. Very bad situation. You can see now they have that very large dune and very large beach width. And again, Jim has mentioned, those properties were not selling. They couldn't give them away following those storms. But now the economic value has increased, the properties are moving, and those condos and homes are booked up. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any.
So Matt, is there in the situation where we really haven't had storms over the last few years, does the sand
He uses those words.
normally drift to the east, to the west, to the bar?
Typical drift is east to west in our area. However, if we don't get a storm event, and Commissioner Wines can attest to this, we have southwesters every afternoon. So actually, I would be willing to bet these past couple years, the drift has been a mild drift to the east. However, a hurricane can come along and move all of that material and 10 times more overnight. And especially immediately adjacent to the inlet, you have a lot of strange phenomenon occurring around the ebb shoal and just the interaction of the tide coming in and out there. Sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but
Yeah. That was good. That was good. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
all right. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it.